In a way, I've been sort of shamed into making this video. I have touched on this subject in the past, but it's never a subject that I intended to make a complete video about. But early on Monday morning, I received a comment from a long-term viewer and subscriber, thanking me for bringing up the subject of mental health under the current sort of circumstances that we're all living under. A suggestion that this subject should be more publicised because it is crucially important, and at the moment, mental health is a major issue. I think probably just about everywhere in the world. Now, in the past, I've avoided making a video on this subject for a number of reasons. One is, strictly speaking, I'm not qualified to go into any depth. But then again, in a way, I'm eminently qualified to go into this in depth. And I'll come on to that in a minute or two. The other problem is this is a motorcycle lifestyle channel. And as anyone who frequents the internet will know, there are an abundance of people who are unable to see the value of this kind of video. And I could see the comments section being swamped with, oh, I only came here to listen to the exhaust note on the Bullet or the Interceptor or whatever. I didn't come here to listen to this. And then on top of all that, it means revealing something about myself which I consider private, and I wasn't really prepared to do that. Now, it's been recorded that since World War II, incidents of depression in the population has increased every decade. Back in the old days, it was described as morbid melancholy. It wasn't understood because it wasn't that common. Back then we lived very physically active lives. The working days were much longer, there wasn't much time to think, and then when the working day was finished we were often so exhausted, again, there wasn't much time to think. And at the same time there was much less awareness of depression, so it probably wasn't reported as often as it occurred. In fact, it's only over the last couple of decades, and certainly here in the UK, that it has been considered to be a proper mental illness. And so research into its causes and research into how to manage it are probably about 100 years behind other types of psychological research. And so, to this day, worldwide, the medical profession's understanding of depression is, to say the least, tenuous. Now, as if that wasn't bad enough, our Victorian ancestors didn't tolerate illness very well, and they found mental illness to be particularly embarrassing and distasteful, and so it became stigmatised. It was hidden away, it wasn't talked about, and to a large extent that stigma still hasn't been relinquished from our way of thinking when it comes to mental illness, and that includes depression. Now, I've suffered from severe depression most of my life. Depression and me are old friends, and like so many men of my generation, I was brought up believing that men had to be strong. They're not to show weakness. It's not the done thing to show your emotion and tell people how you feel. So when it comes to things like depression, you should just sort yourself out and get on. Pull yourself together. I was often even told that it was my fault for feeling that way, and that I should just sort myself out and cheer up. Now, obviously, as a child, I didn't have a clue what was going on. I genuinely believed that what people were telling me was the truth, and that it was me that was wrong for feeling the way I was feeling. It was my fault. And so I learned to do what many sufferers of depression do. I learned to hide it. I learned, if you like, to become an actor, where I could be the life and soul of the party around my family and friends, pretending that I was fine and life was just great, even though all the time there was a voice inside me screaming out in pain and despair. Now, this pattern of behaviour doesn't improve depression, it makes it worse. In a lot of cases, the sufferer becomes a ticking time bomb. Depression is not a sign of inadequacy or weakness. It's also not a sign that you're unintelligent or stupid. Vincent van Gogh, Winston Churchill and Abraham Lincoln, all three of these men have one thing in common: they suffered from very severe depressions. Winston Churchill referred to it as black dog, which I personally think is a good way to describe it. These are men that were immensely successful in the fields. They were not stupid men. They were not weak men. They have been regarded in history as brilliant men, men of superior intelligence. In fact, there is some research that suggests the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to suffer from depression. So in that respect, there is no shame in admitting that you have depression. And I don't just mean admitting to other people that you have depression, I mean admitting to yourself that you have depression. Bottling it up and pretending that it isn't there isn't going to help you. In actual fact, I believe that that helps the disease to take control of you. Depression is like a filter in your brain. All the information that you receive, whether it be auditory or visual, is forced through a filter before it's allowed to enter your consciousness. And what that filter does is it removes any morsel of joy. It removes every particle of positivity. It excludes any feeling of pleasure, and all it allows to pass through is negativity. That is all that reaches your consciousness. It skews your perception of the world into a negative sort of blackness. You're not only unable to derive any pleasure from anything you do, you're completely demotivated from the pursuit of pleasure. And as depression is allowed to tighten its grip on you, the more demotivated you become, to the point where you can't carry out simple everyday tasks. You lose the ability to function as a human being. Now, as I've already said, the causes for depression aren't really understood. There's a suggestion that it can be genetic. There's good evidence to suggest that it can be brought on by environmental factors, such as your upbringing or a life-changing incident in your life. There's also a suggestion that it may be a problem with the brain, a physical problem with the brain, a short circuit that inhibits the production of serotonin, or it's been suggested that it may be an interruption in the production of dopamine. There's even suggestion that for people that produce ample amounts of serotonin, that the brain recycles it too quickly. The problem is, medical science as yet has not been able to find out exactly where that tail should be pinned onto the donkey. So although doctors now have reached a stage where they're able to diagnose depression, treatment or management ends up being something of a trial by ordeal. Over the years, I've lost count of the amount of different prescriptions I've been, which in most cases, at best, have no effect on the problem, and at worst, make it worse. Now, the reason I'm making this video is not to tell you how to cure depression, because there is no cure. The reason I'm making it is to tell you A, how to recognise it, and B, it's okay to recognise it and admit that it exists. Because believe me, once you've done that, that will relieve a huge weight from your shoulders. And once you've crossed that threshold, it frees you up to seek help. Now, that help can come in many forms, and usually your local doctor is the first port of call. Don't be afraid to get in touch with them. Confront depression, don't hide from it. The problems that this crazy world is facing at the moment with this pandemic and Brexit and various other things that are going on is a festering petri dish for mental illness. Now, most of us have spent at least 4 of the last 9 months in total lockdown, deprived of human contact, deprived of exercise, deprived of the normal stimulation that the human body has evolved to require. Some of us have had to cope with lockdowns even worse than that. Put on top of that the financial stress that this has caused to people. And poor mental health or depression is an inevitable product of those circumstances. It's your mind and your body's natural reaction to exceptional circumstances. And I personally think that for anybody that has got through this unscathed, they have shown superhuman resilience. There is absolutely no shame in admitting that it has affected you mentally. So don't be afraid to pick up the phone or get on the internet and seek help. Now, just before I go, there is one positive aspect of depression that is never spoken about. Over the years, I've been prescribed drugs, I've been given counselling, and I've always found that at best the benefits are fleeting. They don't last. But one of the main ways that depression manifests itself is deep overthinking. It forces you to think and consider things on a level that most people wouldn't consider possible. And if you allow depression to have its own way, those thought processes concentrate purely on the negative. And I realised many years ago that depression forces you to think outside of the box, because the thoughts that you're having are so unreasonable that the only way they can exist is because your brain is thinking out of the box. It's thinking differently to other people. So instead of fighting depression, I decided to make it work for me. I decided to use that overthinking to work in my favour. That's how this channel came about. That's how it came into existence. I channel that deep thought, that overthinking, into the production of videos and choosing subjects for making those videos. And some of the best videos that I've made, not necessarily ones that I thought at the time were going to be the best that I'd made, but certainly some of the best performing videos that I've made have been made when I was in the depths of a bout of depression, and I just harnessed that deep thinking to work for me. I'm not suggesting that that can work for everybody, but if you suffer from depression, give that a try. Use depression, don't fight it. Instead, try exploiting it. If you can learn how to do that, depression can be an asset, not a handicap. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Vincent van Gogh used the pain and anguish of depression to produce world-changing artwork. And there's little doubt in my mind that both Churchill and Lincoln channeled their depression to find unique solutions that rescued nations from unwinnable situations. Right, this has been a really difficult video to make. I hope that you found something in there that may be of use to you. I'll be honest, I'm absolutely exhausted now, so I'm not going to go through my normal spiel. If you are riding, please ride carefully, and I'll see you in the next video.